really tight to do. No. I don't think it's going to work with a vinyl cord, sadly. I'm just going to do this for an hour. Getting some good volume out of it, though. So I'll try to find a... I mean, it's fractional, the amount of... I mean, basically, my observation of washtub bass players is they're going root fifth, root down to fifth. You can go up to the fifth too. You could go, but you have to really, I mean, I'm moving this thing very little. But if I had something to play to, I could tune to it. But I can hear pitch. Anyway, let me pull this out. There we go. That's my latest under $100 instrument. How's it going? I'm just kind of checking in on a Saturday morning here. Well, it's morning here. See if anybody shows up. We actually made that. Me and my sons made that on my birthday. I kind of gave us a project to do on my birthday, something fun we could do. And I'm constantly trying to procure instruments that I don't have. I've had this one for quite a while. But instruments from all over the world for making some, sometimes for being ethnic, like trying to, I worked on the TV show on Netflix, Thai Cave Rescue, and I played a lot of Thai pin on it. And the thing was, though, the composer, he had a whole ethnic group in Thailand that he recorded. So a lot of the ethnic music was that. But then there was score stuff, and he wanted elements of, like, for example, the Thai pin in the score. And so that was where I got hired to do that. He actually, the composer actually bought me an instrument to use on that, so I wouldn't have to pay for it. But he pays me enough that I could have bought one. They're not very expensive. And one of the places you can go to find instruments, and it's my success rate there is, let's see. Well, but see, Reverb, I've had similar problems. But, because if I'm going to buy like an oud, I'm not going to get a $5,000 oud just because I'm not going to get that much work and I'm not that good of a player. And now a better oud wouldn't be a bad thing. I would actually like to. I follow somebody in a store in Saudi Arabia that sells ouds, and they're never more than $1,000, and they sound great. But these guys are good players, and they make them sound good, and I know how that is. But I think, I would totally upgrade an oud for $1,000. I thought about at some point if I could get out to this. I've got a friend that lives in this town in fact, I may have this house marked on, where is it? Let's see. What's the name of the town? It's on it's basically kind of in the mountains, but also on, I think I marked his house. Well, is that Google Earth? Did I? No, I have things marked. Maybe I didn't mark his house. But he's on the Red Sea, basically. He kind of up. Oh, it's Jeddah, I think. I think it's Jeddah. But I don't see any marks, any saved spots there. And I think this store is in Jeddah too. Now I don't know when I would ever get to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and I may be saying it wrong. But hey, ciao, Claudio. Um, but it would be, I could go there. It's actually not very far from Mecca. I could go there, and then hopefully, I mean, I know they can ship anywhere in the world, so I could go there and then pick out an oud and have them ship it to America. So when I got home, it was here. But I'm not sure when I'd ever be in Jeddah. I have a friend that did a gig in Jordan recently, but that's not even that close, to be honest. Um, Wendy, I was going to get up on that ladder and trim some branches. What else? Yeah, it's cooler in the house, isn't it? I don't know where you are, Wendy, but oh, hey, Sam's here. Good morning. What a pleasant surprise. Well, I'm not going to be here Monday, so I couldn't do my live stream normal Monday, so I thought I'd just kind of hang out with you guys a little bit on Saturday. I went 3.5 hours last Monday. We were just talking about the Paul Davids thing, which is still crazy. I've been going through. So I think I'm going to do two. In fact, maybe I'll try to do one of them today. It's hard. It's hard because when I start thinking about recording a video, I go, oh, I could talk about this and I could talk about that and I could talk about this, and then it ends up being like a 30-minute video, like my mandolin video, and it took me forever to edit that thing. But basically, two things that have come up. People have a lot of questions about the Squire. And a lot of comments about how dirty the neck is. And the funny thing is, I can't see it. And Paul's camera was so good when he did a close up on my hands. I'm like, oh my God, it's so gross. But from this perspective, I don't see any of that. My eyes are really bad. I'm completely blind in my left eye. And in my right eye is very blind. So without glasses, I can't see anything. And if something's too close, I have a hard time seeing. I basically, was like, oh, I see the dust, and I'm like, oh, it's really dusty, but I didn't notice it. I just thought that was kind of like worn out wood or something. I didn't know it was like grunge, but his camera was so good. and then I'm like so gross. I like scraped it with my finger and went, oh yeah, there is something there. And I smelled it. I'm sorry, I'm admitting this. I smelled it, and it smelled like cigarette smoke, and I'm going, I don't smoke cigarettes. No one I know, no one in this house smokes cigarettes. Why does it smell like cigarette smoke? So I don't know what that's about. And the thing is, my hands are always clean. I'm very fastidious. Like, I can't stand to have anything sticky or dirty or anything on my hands. So I always wash my hands. And so it's probably just accumulated soap that's from my hands or something. And a lot of sweat. And it's probably the wood, and the strings. I don't know. Anyway, so I want to do a video where I go into detail on that, but part of the video will be me cleaning the fretboard. Sometimes those, like on TikTok, and I don't have TikTok on my phone anymore, but on TikTok they have those, like the car cleaning, where the guy takes a filthy car and he cleans it like crazy. And those videos are sometimes like fascinating, right? So I don't think me cleaning fretboard is going to be fascinating. So I'll probably do a before and after kind of thing, But I got a lot of people asking me questions about, like, is it stock? Is it, did I do anything to it? And the thing I love, I'm so cheap that, and look at the back of the neck. Look how dirty the back of the neck is. See, that's something I didn't even notice either, or the bottom of the neck. See, I never noticed that. And so, because again, from my perspective, it's totally clean right here, but underneath it's really dirty. So I don't know. I'm not a dirty person, but it's like I just don't notice certain things. And here's the other thing: is when I'm working, I've got the guitar in my hand. I'm either looking at the screen, looking at the software, or I'm over here looking at music. I've got music in front of me or something, and I'm over here looking at music. Or maybe on this screen, I'll put a PDF so I can read along with the chart and everything, or with the music. And so that's, I don't really look at the instrument that much. It's just, but I don't have any problem doing it. Alex and I did both. He has one too, and we took him to church one weekend and we both played our Squire. It was like Squire Sunday, and one of the guys was like, like he paid $90 for his and I paid 99 or something for mine. And one of the guys at church came, oh, come on. He's like, those guitars sound so good. I mean, we were playing the whole service and it was rock and R&B and everything. It all works well on that guitar. But a lot of people go, oh, I mean, the comments are pretty hilarious. I may have to do some screenshots, black out the names. But, like that, you do 3 songs and you'll be tuning it. Well, the funny thing is I'll do 3 notes and I'll be tuning it. So, because again, I'm in the studio, I'm constantly tuning my guitars because I do not want someone to send me a file back saying, hey, you didn't play this in tune. So, I'll play a phrase and get it down and play it. And then when I'm going to do it again, I'll check my tuning and maybe there's a slight adjustment. Sometimes I have to go back and re-record because I'm like, dang, I didn't even notice that my A string was so sharp or flat or whatever. So, yeah, the tuning thing is something as a professional musician. I mean, at my son Alex, total pro, he will tune between every song. At church, we'll be playing at church, and between songs, sometimes he's tuning. If you have time. Yeah, you're constantly tuning. I always am envious of those guys that can play and then hit a chord and then reach over and adjust the tuning. But when I reach over, I always get the tuning pegs backwards. So I think I'm raising it and I'm really lowering it. Something about like, it's like me trying to point. See, I'm trying to point to this ukulele that's over here. It's right here. I can't do it. I don't have that. I could never be a weatherman. But see that ukulele right there? If I try to point to it, I used to be able to do it when I was using just Chrome and or maybe it was Safari and going directly to it, and it would invert the image. So for some reason, right now I'm not looking at a mirror image of me. I'm looking at what you're seeing. So my right hand is on over here, and it's just like it's the opposite. So hard to explain. Tom's Guest House. Good to see you. I don't know that. I think I would have recognized that, and I don't have a guest house, so unless you're in the shed out back. But it's great to see you. And Dylan, hi. Miguel, good to see you, man. A lot of new. Oh yeah, mandolin. Do you tune by ear? Yeah, I do. I can tune by ear. But I always use a tuner. You need to have, probably, if you're playing with somebody, if you're playing by yourself, it doesn't really matter if I'm just sitting in the living room, sitting on the sofa playing guitar. It really doesn't matter. I'll tune by ear. But it certainly helps to have a tuner. I mean, I know sometimes you can get a $20 tuner. I know that may be a lot for some people, but you can get free tuners if you have a smartphone. There's free tuners for the smartphone, so you can do that. But Joe DeBlasi did this. When I interviewed him, he's a big session guy, and he actually played on Pink Floyd's The Wall. Actually wrote a song on Pink Floyd's The Wall. If I play it, he wrote that, and if I play it, then it'll trigger a copyright strike against me, which I hate. I taught that. We did it. We were teaching songs there for live stream for about 20 weeks in a row. I think it was 20. Was it 20 we did? Something like that, 1920. But Joe did this thing where he would kind of, that thing, right? And then what do? And that works pretty good. And then he did that. So he hit the harmonic at the 6th fret or 7th fret of the bottom string, 6th string, and then the open B string. Should be the same note. And then the same thing on this 7th fret of the 5th string. And those should be the same note. And then he played a chord, and it was pretty much dead in tune. I will use a tuner. The other thing that I will do, if it's a cheap instrument, if it's kind of a weird instrument or whatever, I'll do what's called tempered tuning. I call it tempered tuning. I don't know if that's what it is called. But if I'm going to play up here, then I'll tune those notes. Like I'll put the tuner on, and I'll make sure that, what is this? There we go. I'll make sure that the guitar is in tune up here, and I'll tune these notes like that, like I'm tuning, like if I put a capo on, as if I had a capo on. And if those notes are in tune, then I know that that's going to be in tune. Okay, so so that's called temper tuning. So I'm constantly tuning. But anyway, so I want to do a video on the Squire and then maybe because people have a lot of questions about it on Paul David's. I've been reading all the comments, believe it or not, on Paul's, and it's a lot of comments. But if you keep up on it, it's not too much work. And there's a button there you can sort by newest comments. So all the newest comments jump up, and then and a lot of people have commented on the grimy fretboard. so I'll clean that off. Hopefully the mojo doesn't go away. Hopefully I don't lose my abilities once the grime's gone. You know what I mean? Like Samson. And then the other thing is I've been getting a lot of questions about how do you I want to do what you do. How do you do that? And it's like I've got a channel, or I've got a whole playlist that I was dedicating to that very notion of helping you to get into the music business or to be in the music business. People, think that sometimes I can get them in the music business. I can't do that. And I have a son that's a guitar player and a record producer. And if I can get anybody a gig, I'm going to get it for him. So nepotism is alive and well. But he's a very, very good guitar player. He's a very different guitar player than I am. But so there's not a whole lot I can do to get, and I have friends from high school. Their kids are moving to California and they're getting into some part of the business. And I'm happy to help where I can, or at least give them some guidance. But as far as actually giving them a job, I'm hired by people. I don't hire anybody. I've never had an employee in my life. So, but I do have some tips for those that want to get into the business. And also I have the story of how I got into it. And to be honest, so you wouldn't want to follow my path. You can't follow anybody else's path, for one thing. It's not going to work for you. Everybody's different. And to be honest, I probably did things in my journey professionally that knocked me backwards, not forwards. So I wouldn't necessarily mirror I might be 10 years further along if there were 2 or 3 things I didn't do. And if I had realized a couple things like collaboration, which I think is an important thing in music. I did study classical guitar. Yeah, I studied classical guitar at Butler University Technically, I only went to Butler for 1 year, and I couldn't keep my grades up because I was so busy working in Indianapolis. I had like 40 students at a guitar store, and I had a band that was pretty much playing every Friday and Saturday and rehearsing every Tuesday and Thursday. So I just was not, and I had a girlfriend for a while, and it's just like it's just not gonna happen. So I quit after a year because my goal ultimately was to move to California. The reason I went to college was because I was working at a guitar store and practicing like crazy, and then the guitar store closed and I lost my job, and then I had to work at a Mexican restaurant called Gringos, like the worst named Mexican restaurant you could ever want to work at. And so we had and I only worked there like 6 weeks, but I was like, yeah, maybe I better go to college. This was right after high school, and I was like, yeah, I probably should go to college. So I went there. They didn't have like any. They had. I can't remember what my degree was. It wasn't education, but it was probably performance. I think guitar performance or something like that. And my audition, the teachers were impressed with my left hand, but they weren't impressed with my right hand. My right hand was completely wrong. Hey Ben, good to see you. Thank you so much for your love on RJ's stream this morning. I just turned on my phone and I got on YouTube and the YouTube app, and RJ's live thing came up. And I'm sure I say his name wrong, Ranquillo. He's Filipino, and man, my church is full, is just like half Filipino. Half the band, the band is Filipino. So it's just funny. But RJ, I knew RJ here in LA, and the bass player and keyboard player that's usually at our church, but they're on tour now with their daughter Judith Hill. RJ played with Judith, and that's how I met him. I went to a show and he was playing there, and we kind of exchanged numbers. And then shortly after that, he moved to Chicago and then to Nashville. I think he's in Nashville, right? Surely he knows Walter. Walter moved to Nashville. Gosh, it's been over a year now. Actually, they moved there 2 years ago. Learning modes. Yes. So the cool thing about modes, well, let me finish talking about the professional music thing too. So I want to do a video on kind of my path, and then maybe I'll do a separate video on things I wish I knew at 25 that I didn't learn until 45. But I was kind of pretty much 25, 30 years before I started getting the kind of work that I moved out here for. So I knew people that came here and gave up after 6 months. And so I don't know if I'm tenacious or stupid or a combination of both, but I just didn't give up. And I still don't really consider myself successful. My wife says, well, you bought a house playing guitar in Los Angeles, so you're doing all right. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. I don't mean to discount, but you'll see the YouTube thing back there, but you won't see any Grammys or Grammy, placards, not those statues, or gold records. I played on gold records, platinum records. I played on Grammy winning, Grammy nominated. I've been nominated for a Grammy that I didn't have anything to do with the song, and they made a mistake. That's another story. So I don't have those up on my wall because sometimes those gigs are paid $300, and the placard to get that thing framed and everything is like $1,000. And I'm like, why would I pay $1,000 to commemorate a $300 session? It's like it doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm always forward looking. I'm always I guess I'm the classic "what have you done lately" kind of guy. I at least with myself, I'm that way. And a lot of times I'll go over to people's house and they have all these awards, and I start looking at the dates, and I'm like, they're from 20 years ago, and I'm like, what are you doing now? I mean, it's nice you bought this beautiful house with that money you made back 20 years ago. Have you given up? Have you quit? Are you still doing it? Is it, what's going on? And so I don't want to be that guy where it's like all my awards are getting dusty, and so I just don't have it. But the YouTube thing took me 11 years to get that. I have a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Well, no tears. Probably not any blood. Maybe a little sweat. So sweat that led to that award. And so that's why it's hanging up. Yes, very good wife. To have also my wife will tell me that I'm it's very good to marry someone who affirms your career decisions. And so she definitely, not only did she affirm it, she supported it for many years. We're all creating our own way. And I mean, I think about Justin Bieber and how he got discovered on YouTube, and then all the record companies started going all over YouTube and signing everybody that had viral videos. Like that Grayson Chase, I mean, went up, had a lot of views on his video that he played in piano at school, and then Ellen had him on her show, and then I actually ran into him. I was working with Justin at the record plant, and Grayson was there, and I met him, and nice kid. But I don't know if his record ever came out. If it did, I never heard it, and I never saw if he charted or anything. But he was one of those artists that got signed right off of YouTube from their YouTube viral success, and that path was, it worked once, but no guarantee it's going to work again. I saw with record companies, you can do this. It's fascinating, but there'll be a big band from a city, like Nirvana from Seattle, right? the record companies go up to Seattle and sign everybody. Now there's some great bands over there. I think Pearl Jam was one of the bands up there that got signed. Soundgarden. There's a lot. You can name a lot of really good bands because there was this there was either something in the water, or there was this camaraderie or something, this community that was happening up there, and probably a lot of it, to be honest, was competition. And so bands get competitive with each other. They want to up one another and everything. So record companies will go, and it's like they struck oil and they want to start digging for oil all over the city. And that's what record companies were doing for a long time. A band in Chicago would get really big, like REO Speedwagon, and then they go and sign 10 other bands from Chicago, and you'd never hear from them again. So a friend of mine, his band got signed in Indianapolis. The two big bands in Indianapolis got signed, and I think maybe it had something to do with John Mellencamp's success, or maybe it had something to, I don't know. But Styx was from Chicago too. So you had REO and Styx, and then I think there were probably dozens of bands signed in Chicago that went nowhere. So, you can't really, the path, everybody has their own path, and it's not going to necessarily, you could copy it step for step, and you're not going to have the same success. You might actually have more success, if that's possible. I mean, you wouldn't be following somebody that didn't have any success, so I don't know if that would be possible, but yeah, so I want to do that video. Okay, so learning modes. Are you still with me there, the trustee? And welcome. And Julio, good to see you. Thank you. Oh, what guitar is it? Sorry, it's a Taylor. It's a Taylor 25th anniversary. Let's see, what does it say? XXV, that's 2025. That's Roman numerals for 25. GA. So it's a GA. It's beautiful though. I love the inlay. I had an endorsement deal with Taylors. So I have 2 Taylors. Well, now I have 3. My cousin Kenton, God rest his soul, gave me this. He was dying of cancer, and he wanted me to have his Taylor. This was his baby, and he wanted me to have it, and so that meant a lot. So I try to keep it out, so I keep playing it. I just used it on something. I can't remember what I just used it on, but I just used it on something, and I let his sister know, like when I use it on something, so she can feel like his spirit lives on. Yeah, Sam's going to give you the modes lesson now. But one thing you can realize about modes, okay, is that if you know how to play a major scale, and we can do a C major scale, and the modes generally refer to, there's modes of every, there are modes of even altered scales. So I'm sure there are modes of a diminished scale, but I don't know what they are. Actually, there wouldn't be modes of a diminished scale because it would they would all be identical sounding. Or a chromatic scale or a whole tone scale. So there's not modes of a chromatic scale. There's not modes of a whole tone scale. I mean, maybe someone's going to come along and go, well, indeed, actually, they're technically called blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care. But the modes of a C scale, so the modes of a major scale, or the modes in the diatonic modes, if you know one of the scales, you know them all, which is really, really cool. And so if you know a C major scale, then if you just start on the second note in that scale and play, instead of C to C, you play D to D. Now you're playing a D Dorian scale. But if you're playing over a C major scale, or C major 7 chord, and you play D Dorian, it's just going to sound like a C major scale. Usually, the scale has less to do with the sonics of the scale, or the flavor of the scale, than the chord you're playing over. And so if you play over a D minor to G7 vamp, that's kind of the 2 and the 5. This is the 2 chord, this is the 5 chord in the key of C. And a lot of vamps are those 2 chords. Oops. And that, then that's when you play something over. Then that's when it's helpful to know, okay, so the second mode of C is D Dorian, because progressions in the key of C. And D Dorian sounds pretty good over that. And so would G Mixolydian. And that would be the 5th mode in the key of C. So they all have their own names. I think it's kind of confusing, or you feel like you've cracked the code when you memorize them. But it's basically, you've got Ionian, which is the C, which is major, the first one. And then the second mode is Dorian. And then Phrygian, which I like a lot. Phrygian sounds really cool, like E Phrygian. Like if I'm writing, like right now I'm working on this kind of horror podcast that's hopefully going to get turned into a TV show. And so Phrygian, you can get some really, Phrygian sounds so mysterious and so foreign and maybe a little ethnic, or maybe a little bit, like I said, mysterious. All it is a C scale starting on E. So literally, but I'm starting on. But the thing that makes it so mysterious is it starts with a half step, whereas the C major scale starts with 2 frets, right? C to D. But E Phrygian goes E to F, and so it's this Jaws. Very Phrygian sounding thing. So, and Sam's kind of sharing, like, one of the things that when I would teach, and I've done it on my live stream, but I wanted to do it in a video, but it ends up being 5 videos, which I could totally do. But basically, I show you how to look at the modes, and I write them out in a certain way, and then what I do is we analyze. Well, then what I do is the first thing I do is I write out all the modes of C, and then we analyze them. So the next thing we do is we look at what are the intervals, and so they all have unique whole step and half step combinations. So like a major scale is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. But a Dorian scale would be whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole. And so I don't want to, there's no quiz on this, but those are the distances of the notes in the scale. Okay? And then what you do, then the next thing I would do is take those formulas, the whole, whole, half things, take those formulas and now use those formulas to create what I call parallel scales. So start on C with each one of those, and you end up creating a C major scale. Oops, sorry. You end up creating a C Dorian scale. Then the next will be C Phrygian, and then C Lydian, then C Mixolydian, then C minor, and then C Locrian. And so you end up creating all 7 scales starting on the C note. And now you've got what's called parallel, meaning that each of the scales has a C in it of some kind. Well, they all have a C in it, period. And they all have some kind of D. It may be D or D flat. They all have some kind of E. It may be E or E flat. But it'll be like all C's. You can start out with that. You can write out 7 C's, 7 D's, 7 E's, 7 F's, 7 G's, so and so. And as you do the scale, you can figure, oh, okay, I'm going to have to flat this and whatever. So, and then I do what Sam's doing there, and that is to analyze. So then you look at that C, like, for example, you look at the C Lydian scale, and you realize that it's just a C major scale with the 4th note raised. So it's +4. Here's C major, and then C Lydian. But kind of in a vacuum, the modes all have their own kind of, they have their own flavor and things that like to be used. Lydian scale is oftentimes used in movies to kind of create this, like, tugging on your heartstring kind of, like if I was doing. you know, right? So it's like, oh, they're about to kiss or something, you know. And so, yeah, the modes can be used to create an emotion. Like a lot of like death metal stuff is written in like that Phrygian key. And you can even just take the E string and make all the modes that way. You can use your formulas. So I should do a 4-part, because it would literally be 4, like the introduction to the modes where we make all the modes of key of C, and then we analyze them. That would be the second video, and then the third video would be, I'm sorry, we come up with the formulas. The third video would be making parallel scales, okay, instead of relative. When I talk about C major, and don't worry, there's no quiz on this, C major and then D Dorian, they have the same notes, right? Didn't I just say, like, well, if you play D to D in the key of C, you get a D Dorian. Well, those are called relative. They're related to each other. They have the exact same DNA, basically. It's like brother and sister. So those are relative. But when we do the all C scales, like C, like I did before, C major, C Dorian, C Phrygian, C Lydian, C Mixolydian. Sorry, my fingers are bored. C minor, C Locrian. No, yeah, C Locrian. Those are all called parallel. Like I said, they all have stacks of C's, D's, E's, and F's. Okay, so that would be the third lesson. The fourth lesson would be analyzing those and going, well, if you take a major scale and flat the 7th, you get the Mixolydian scale, which is kind of what Sam's talking about. Yeah, and it's Sam and I'm a part of the thing that kept me from being a jazz guitar player was the fact that I kept trying to find the secrets instead of just playing. And it's just like a kind of the paralysis of analysis. I'm like, okay, well, if I do this, and then it's just my soloing in jazz, and I haven't done a jazz gig in forever, but my soloing in jazz generally sounded riffy or too in the pocket, I guess. Oh, I see. Oh, how you can derive a Dorian. So if you look at minor pentatonic, and we all learned that A minor pentatonic, I think pretty early on. It's A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D. All right, it's kind of part of the solo to Stairway to Heaven or whatever. But it's a pentatonic scale. It's 5 notes. A diatonic scale has 7 notes. So if we wanted to make this a Dorian scale, you could add the B, which is the second, and you could add the F sharp here. So you end up with... You kind of have to shift. I mean, I might do what I call a 3 per scale, but I'm still going to have to shift. But that gives you a couple extra notes. I think B.B. King would definitely use that second. So you could use an A Dorian scale in a blues context, and it would pretty much work. The only thing you might want to do is every now and then take that C natural and go to C sharp. That ninth is really nice, but the nice thing about that ninth, or that B natural over the A, is that when you go to the E chord, it really fits the E chord. When you go to that 5 chord in the blues. And then the nice thing about having like the A Dorian thing is having that is having that F sharp. So when you get to this D chord, you got that. That you have that F sharp that's part of that D chord, and you have the C in there. Basically, every note that's in this D7 chord you're going to have in A Dorian. And so for the E, and then so you could do like a Dorian scale plus a major third if you want to think of it. That would end up being an 8-note scale. It would sound like this. But you don't necessarily have to like think, okay, the scale has a C in it and a C sharp. Just realize that over the A chord, you can go to C sharp if you want, because it totally works. But the C sharp doesn't really do much. It doesn't sound good over the D chord. It sounds fine over the E chord. It's the 13th of the E chord. Hey TJ, what's going on? So that's, yeah, so that you can add, you can take a pentatonic scale. I can take a A minor pentatonic, right? So I'm at 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7. And to make it Dorian, I added the second, which is the B here. And then 5, 7. You can go 9 and then 5, 7 like this. Sorry. Or you could do it here. You could do the F sharp there. And that would be A Dorian, or we could take that minor pentatonic and we can add the second and the flat 6 and create A minor. And so I'm going from 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7 to 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, and then 5, 7. There's no slide air guitar players. Yeah, because it looks like they're flipping off their audience. Yeah. And then if I want to take that A minor pentatonic and make it a minor, the Locrian, not Locrian, the Phrygian, I go 5, 6, 8, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7. Spy, what's going on? Completely new to music theory. Thank you so much for guiding me through the depths of this amazing science. At first glance, modes looks connected to jazz music. Modes obviously pre-existed jazz music. So, modes, Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, they were all aware of modes. I think more important than modes were like harmony and chord interactions, and it's funny because I feel like the true artists, the true composers, they kind of do whatever they want, and then other people come along and analyze what they do. All right, I felt like that was very true, like with the Beatles. I think about the story of, it's in George Martin's book, All You Need Is Ears, and Paul McCartney wanted to help with the string arrangement for Yesterday, and sorry, I put my guitar down. There we go. And originally, actually the song's in F, but he tuned down a whole step, so he played in G. But probably George Martin had a problem with that. But I know he had a problem with why she had to go. I don't know. She would say. There was some. There was something that I forget what the melody. There was some melody that Paul wanted the strings to do that George Martin said was wrong. It's incorrect. It's not in the key. And Paul was like, "Yeah, but that's what I hear." And and so George was like, "Okay." And then when it started to get executed, he was like, "Oh, yeah, Paul's right. He definitely got an ear that's hearing the next thing." You know, it was like, "Oh, okay." And sure enough, it was one of those things that a lot of times, like, people would do that kind of musical idea, and it not like it hadn't been done before, but it was kind of like if you wanted to mock or imitate the Beatles, you might put that, like, it was kind of like a dominant seventh over the one chord or something. I forget what it was. It was something weird. Somebody might know what it is. Yeah, so modes, yeah, the names of the modes are Greek, and so that tells you they're pretty old. Yeah, music theory is not music fact. That's right, exactly right. It's why it's called theory. And like I said, Mozart, I don't know that they really, Beethoven, Bach, the Beatles, anybody you think is a good, even Burt Bacharach, who's one of my favorite melody writers. It's like you're fishing for that thing. And you just do what sounds good to you at the moment. Now, when I'm writing, if I'm writing pop stuff, I tend to, I was just working on something, not pop, but when I'm writing pop stuff, I do tend to try to stay in a key, in one key, and you'll notice that most pop does that, except any pop that kind of quotes any Latin music, or all Latin pop has that major, it's a minor key and it has a major 5. So you have this harmonic minor thing. So it's not a pure major scale. In fact, it might have a G in it and a G sharp, like if you're in a key. Yeah, well, I can't see. And so right there, it's like, play that, I'm playing A minor, which is ACE, basically in the key, ACE, then F, which is FAC, and then C, which is CEG, and then I'm playing an E7. And what that does is that's the 5 chord in the key of A minor, technically is E minor, but that doesn't really give you the same kind of tension that an E7 gives you, or E major. And so that G sharp is like a leading tone, right? And in fact, even coming from the C, it sounds great. Even though that G sharp's not in the key of A minor, it's in the key of A harmonic minor, but you just came from a C chord, which is a G note in it. So a lot of pop music has that chromatic movement in the key, usually in the minor key. But a lot of times if I'm writing a pop hook or something, I'll stay kind of in, in fact, ETA is an example where I use that. But I'll stay in a major key, and I'll try not to get too far outside. And because when they're writing the melody, a lot of times what they do is they go in the booth, they turn on auto-tune, all right? And they turn on auto-tune as a tool. They use auto-tune just like I use a capo. And then they start singing ideas, and just kind of get in the zone and go with the flow. I've seen this done 100 times, and they'll and so the auto-tune will be making it sound like a robot, right? Well, this is not for anybody to hear. This is just for them to write with. It's a writing tool. And what the auto-tune does is it automatically corrects them. They could go da, they could da, like that, and it'll sound like this instead of like that. So then they can, a lot of the good top line writers can really control what they're doing. And, everything they do is going to be in the key no matter what they sing. And that way they can start goofing around, and, they'll listen to it, they'll sing over it 10 times and nothing will be a keeper, but then they'll kind of zero in on that. And it's again about being kind of in the zone. So when I do pops tracks, I always put the key of the song in there so they can go right to and go right to auto tune and or whatever pitch correcting software they're using and insert the key so that when the singer starts to write over it, they can do it. Now, I'll even make notes sometimes if it's weird. Like I'll say, well, it's in the key of G. But I do go to F. You know, if I did that, then I would tell them, oh, maybe add F to auto tune. So, you know, that kind of thing. So that's where the modes can come into play there. Now, when I was writing some like horror stuff, I'm just trying to find these voicings that I feel like are like I was doing something with this, like, what did I just not go over that? Right, very X-Files, right? And that's an A minor with a F added on top. A minor, A, C, E. But then if I go to major, it sounds cool. Isn't that a great sound? So that's an A major triad with the F on top as well. So this A minor is just pure A minor with F. But this is more akin to a D harmonic minor. So I could play D in the bass. I did something else. What else did I do? I think I did, I think I went to B flat in the bass. And it's all designed to create tension because again, this project is kind of a horror thing, and so basically, I'm just creating some ideas, and we're going to try to figure out what works best, and you know maybe there'll be some harmonic chord progression that will ultimately be kind of the flavor, the overriding flavor of the whole show. So. Yeah, there's a lot to grasp, but it's also kind of it's kind of a need to know thing. Like when I talk about capoing, and I'm big on capoing, but I also tell you, look, when you're capoing, don't think that you're playing G when you're playing a G shape. Like I'm capoed to third fret, that's not a G, that's B flat. So I want you to learn the capo keys. Like I want you to learn what chords you're actually playing here. And there's a reason for that. But I don't want you to learn them all at once, you'll never learn them. Just like next time you're doing a song where you're capoed at the first fret or something, instead of thinking what, you know, like G, instead of thinking G, C, D, C, think A flat, E flat, E flat, E flat. Think what they actually are. Because for one thing, if you're playing with a piano player and they say, what chords are you playing? Oh, I'm playing G, and then they play a G. And you're like, no, G. They're like, I am playing G. And they go, no, G, look. And you're like, yeah, but you're up a fret. You know what it is? So it's a way to, ultimately, you want to learn your whole fretboard. Somebody just made that comment about caged method. What was it? Learn where the second and fifth are located in each cage position, or third and fifth are located in each cage position. I'm assuming the third and fifth of each of chords, like a major chord, minor chord, and everything. But yeah, you definitely want to start learning your fretboard, but sometimes it's not like one of those things you can just learn all at once, because if you don't, I mean, when I was a kid, I really wanted to learn my fretboard. I had gaps in my fretboard that I was like, what note is this? And so what I did was I've told people this. I wrote down all the notes you could have on note cards. A sharp, these are separate note cards. A sharp, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D flat, so on and so forth. All of them written out. So you end up with 17 different note cards. So you shuffle them like a deck of cards, and you put them face down, you flip it over, and you go, it says F. And so you try to find an F on every string starting from the lowest to the highest. and you'll start to see patterns. But basically F, 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 F. Now the first time you do it, you might be, okay, well, I know that's F, but where's F on the A string? A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, there's F. Okay. Okay, D string. D, D. You know, it may be that slow. But by a week, you might be more like, okay, here's an F, F, F here. Okay, and then it's here. A month from then, if you do it every day, you might be, you know, able to find it everywhere. So that's but the thing is, if you stop doing that, then and you don't use your fretboard at all, you only play in first position, you're probably going to lose that knowledge. I've learned a lot of things. I've forgotten more than I've learned by far. What's the inlay called? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's a flower. I don't know. What does it look like to you guys? It came like that. It doesn't have a pickup in it, which I actually like because I'm in the studio. I play guitar live. I do play guitar live a lot, but when I play acoustic live, I usually use my Loudon because the pickup in that thing sounds the best. Ben Tom says, in my first couple of years of playing guitar, I had a really good jazz teacher. And he first forced me to learn all the notes up and down the neck, and it made me play scales up and down each string. That actually really, really helps too, going up and down on a single string. The other thing that I bought that book, Mick Goodrick's book, The Advancing Guitarist. Let me pull it up on Amazon, and if you want to pick it up, I can get. It's weird. At first, okay, I'm the worst. I am the worst. Like I'll buy a book and like a how-to book or whatever, and I won't read it at all. It's like I just never get around to it. Whatever. I'll buy music theory books and stuff like that. There's probably not a single book I own that I've bought music book that I've ever gotten all the way to the end on. But that's not necessarily. I mean, Ted Green, you're never going to make it. I don't know anyone's who made it all the way to the end of a Ted Green book, but that's just me. What's it called? Mick Goodrick, The Advancing Guitarist. Okay, so I get this book, and I get this book in the mail, and there's no notes in it. I'm like, wait, I thought this was a guitar book, and somebody had recommended it to me. And there are notes in it, musical notes. So there it is there. And let's see. Oh, you had half my index on my left hand cut off. Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, yeah, but he had his index and middle finger. So yeah, I feel for you there, Bent Tom, because yeah, it's like that would be tough. I had a student that. Well, it was a neighbor who played banjo. He was just a nice guy, old guy, and I would teach him banjo lessons. And he had a banjo, and I taught him how to play banjo. But he was missing, and banjo is I think you could totally play with these three fingers. It's rare that I need all four fingers for playing banjo. I don't play a lot of banjo, but yeah, Mick Goodrick. Anyway, this book, The Advancing Guitarist, it's a lot of conceptual things. Like, think about it this way, and I'm like, oh, really? It's like, okay, dude's all Zen. And I'm like the least Zen person there is. But he did things like, okay, now, over this progression, whatever progression, only use the high E string and the G string. Whatever. I'm just random. I'm basically randomizing the two strings. And then he'd say, only use the fifth string and the second string. And so you're like, okay. end up, like, it really forces you to see the scales up and down, all the C scales in this case, on the individual strings. And I mean, that was just one, like, that was one lesson that was maybe 2 pages long or something. And this book is pretty thick. It's pretty crazy. So if the whole book is designed, it's called The Advancing Guitarist. I don't know. I wouldn't have called it that. I would have called it The Rut Killer, is what I would have called that book. To me, it felt like a complete rut killer. Oh, text to speech is killing me. Mick changed the way I approached the instrument. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. All of us are that guitar player when we break a string, right? A lot of times you realize how much fretboard knowledge you have when you're at a gig and you break a string and you're like, okay, now how do I revoice these chords so I can actually, people know when, it's a great, so having like phenomenal fretboard facility will almost make losing a string a non-issue. I remember one weekend I was kind of doing research for Elixir strings when they first came out. And at the time they first came out, I was leading worship at my church. So I was up on stage, and it was 5 services and 2 rehearsals. So like literally I'm up there playing these 4 songs 7 times every weekend. Saturday, I forget what time our call time was, but we had a 5 o'clock and a 7 o'clock service, and then it was, I don't remember, 8, 9:30, and 11, something like that. Anyway. We built a bigger building. Now we only have 3 services. So we have a lot more people, but we're only having to do 3 services, which is super duper nice. Because 5 services was a long time. And so they, Elixir was having, particularly on the acoustic sets, I didn't have a problem on the electric sets, but on the acoustic sets, the G string was breaking a lot. So I was constantly breaking the G string when I was strumming acoustic. And yeah, a lot of great musicians and a lot of great singers came out of churches. But I was leading, I'm singing, I'm leading worship, and I break a string. I'm like, oh, great. So I'm like having to sing, lead a congregation, lead a band, think of transitions in between songs or whatever, and now I don't have a G string. And then one weekend, though, I literally broke the G string, the D string, and the A string. I kid you not, in 3 different services. Not in the same service, but because I went to my guitar case, I replaced one string, and I put another one on. And so at the time when I broke a string, I would pack it up and ship it, or send a bunch of strings, over a period of time to Elixir, and they would analyze them. Why did they break? Where did they break? That kind of thing. And I was probably playing too hard. I know I was up there. I was kind of nervous and stressed and kind of trying to hear myself. And so I was hitting too hard. I don't really break strings anymore, but I do think that they fixed whatever that problem was. Again, we're talking the early 2000s when they first launched. And so they helped, and they would send me unlimited strings. Basically, they would just send me boxes of strings at the time, So basically, hey, Bruce, what's going on? So I basically was kind of doing their, some of their R&D, front lines research kind of thing, which I was thrilled to do. I made a love connection at the NAMM show. If you ever want to know a reason to go to the NAMM show, that's why. Now, I don't go there and ask for endorsements, but if you just start talking to someone and you're really into something, you can get an endorsement. You might get an endorsement. You won't, but you might. I mean, I'm not saying you guarantee will, but. Anyway, so yeah, strings are I really break them now. So let's see. Yeah, the G string. Yeah, the G string is just, it's a wound G string is pretty small, and on electrics you have an unwound G string, so it's not really an issue. So let's see what else is going on. Any other questions? that I didn't get. Bruce, you just joined us, so you're not been watching the chat. Completely new. I'm still learning caged. Yeah, yeah. The caged method. I've done a lot of videos on the caged method, and it basically, yeah. The idea is that you take those 5 chords that are probably 5 of the first 10 chords you ever learned, which is C, A, G, E, and D, and you visualize those shapes up and down the fretboard. And it's great for finding rhythm ideas or for finding rhythm parts, and it's also great for soloing. I use the caged method pretty exclusively when I'm, if I'm soloing over some kind of thing, and I don't do a lot of soloing anymore. Nobody calls you for that kind of stuff. It's just not the kind. Well, they don't call me, but there's not a lot of solos on me. But if there's something like a now, so this basically progressions in A minor or C. I might, sound like George Harrison, right? George Harrison totally played caged method. In fact, that's Let It Be. Sang high. So Let It Be, basically in the key of C, and what George Harrison, he's thinking for right here is, you could say, oh, he's thinking A minor pentatonic. No, maybe he's seeing this G-shaped C chord, and then he's going down to this A-shaped C chord, and back to the G. This is like. When he slides up there, he's kind of visualizing maybe this E form C chord. And this is the solo off of the album. The single solo was that's the single version, I think. Anyway, there were 2 different versions. The only difference between the 2 versions of Let It Be is the guitar solo, and I think there was, I think that's it, or maybe there's I forget. I think that's the only difference. But yeah, you're just starting to see these shapes up and down the fretboard, and then you kind of work your way through all the keys. Do you do it all at once? No. Again, I would just go, well, if you got a song that's you're playing in your band and it's in D, then start working on your D. So like, I'm going from seeing this D shape with this C shape D chord. And then now I'm going to this A form C shape, and and every one of the forms has their own licks. Like, when I'm playing the D shape, I might do that. When I'm playing the A shape, I might go do that. When I'm playing the E shape, I might be pulling some blues licks. Every one of those shapes kind of has a flavor to it, or certain tendencies that most guitar players tend to gravitate towards. I mean, a lot of times when I'm soloing, they want something that's almost very stereotypical. I don't necessarily need to cut new ground with every guitar solo, like Joe Satriani or Steve Vai or somebody like that. And no one's calling me to do that kind of stuff. And I don't know that they're getting called. They might be getting called to play on records, but nobody's hearing them. So, yeah, exactly, Ben. And the thing is too. I had this discussion recently. Maybe we were talking about it online too. But about getting in the zone. How do you get in the zone? And when you're in the zone, so the funny thing is when I think about it, when I listen back to the original track of ETA, which is what the Paul Davids video was about, it, I said it was like the seventh track that I started that night. Like I got this text, or yeah, it was a text, pretty, say, hey, can you send me some ideas blank like this? And so I started working on ideas, and I was getting pretty late. I was pretty tired. But sometimes that's when it's easier to get into that zone where it's just the music's just flowing through you. And that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, wow, man, it was one take. I mean, it sounds great. And I'm like, wow. And I know it's a second take because I have the alt take, and I didn't get very far in the alt one. I just like got the idea, and I went, oh, that's cool. Okay, let me go with it now. And I put a drum beat in, and I just kind of play against it, and I vibe against it. And I try really hard to lay back, because my tendency is to sit on the front of the beat instead of on the back of the beat, which is a little bit more like pop and R&B and soul and funky. Funky is sometimes on the back, sometimes on the front of the beat. But yeah, so I try to, I love being in the zone. It doesn't happen very often. I think when I did my my Django song that I uploaded to Spotify called Question Mark, that was not in a zone. I literally no, let's take that back. Okay, here's how I did that song. Because it was like a gypsy jazz kind of vibe, and it was like. Whatever, it was pretty. I don't remember it now, but so I would just put myself in record. I knew the progression. I had it down, and I would just. I would just start riffing, trying to be musical, try to be interesting, try to be melodic, try to say something, not just play scales and riffs. And so Logic will record that, and then it goes back, and I just keep it in record, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I keep going, and I try, not always successfully, I try to put gaps in my playing. And the reason you put a little gap in your playing, well, for one thing, you want to treat it like a voice, or like a sax player has to take a breath. But also you want to let an idea sit. Like if you do a really cool melodic idea, then you kind of want people to realize it was a cool melodic idea, not wow them with another idea immediately after that. But the other reason to put gaps in there is so that when you go to edit a solo together, okay, you have spaces where you can crossfade, and you don't have to worry about like, oh shoot, I like the beginning, I like this lick and I like this lick, but the problem is they overlap. Then you can't use it. So, for 10 takes, I was trying to be in the zone, soloing. And then after that, it's zone-free zone. Because I'm literally patchworking and picking the best phrases of the 10 for each section of each phrase. I'm like, oh, this is good, this is good. So then it looks like this weird checkerboard thing where I'm choosing it. Then what I do is I bounce that, and then what I do is in this case, on this particular song, what I did then was I copied it on piano. And so whatever, and I would find all the notes on the keyboard so that I had a music chart, and then I had the music chart here, and then I would replay it, and then I could concentrate on the feel. Because when I'm recording it originally, I'm fishing. I'm fishing for ideas, and sometimes I get to the idea a little late, and it's like, yeah, that works, but it would work better if I started it on beat, on the and of 4 instead of on the and of 1 or something like that. So that's when I would kind of massage it when it was in the MIDI, and then I would relearn it, maybe playing section by section to get a good performance. Try to do that in one sitting so your microphone and everything, the room temperature, everything stays the same, if that makes sense. and that way it sounds more like one performance. The song is I'll put the YouTube link here because when you upload it to CD Baby, it uploads it to everywhere. Here it is. Let's see, and it's probably got 10 views. No, it's got 105 views. I didn't do it really to make money through streaming or anything like that because it's no one's particularly interested in this type of music. I did it because here's a music business secret. You ready? You're asking me for this stuff. Hey, Dan Strahle, good morning. I know you're not working today, so you can actually hang out. Nice, yeah. So I started playing guitar in 1970, so I'm older than you, bet. But so here's the thing: when you have there's in a movie, there's three types of music. There's score, like you think of John Williams writing the score to like Indiana Jones. Then there's source, so when a couple walks into a bar and there's music playing, or you walk into a coffee shop and there's music playing in the background. In a major feature film, that's not done by the composer. That's music that's found for the scene by a music supervisor. And then there's something called needle drop. So those are the basic three things: score, source, and needle drops. And needle drops are when I always use Adam Sandler as an example because he always has great needle drops. He'll put Dream On by Aerosmith in the song. That's a needle drop. So it's a pre-existing, released, published song. The production company can't get any of that. They have to pay for the copyright license, and they have to pay a master license, which is to the record company or whoever paid to make the record and owns the masters. Which brings up the Universal fire that happened a few years ago that burned all those masters. And the question was afterwards, then does Universal still own the masters if they were burned in a fire? That's a good question. And I don't know if it's been challenged legally yet or not, but it's a fascinating story. Brutally sad. I mean, the records that were lost there. What's interesting is that I think it was Beato was talking about that, and I learned something from Beato on this. He said that Jimmy Page owns all the masters to Led Zeppelin because he paid for all the sessions. So he must have been making decent. I knew he was a session player in England in the 60s. So he must have been making enough money to do that. And so that was super duper smart on his part. But technically for this song, I own the master. So this way, if somebody asks me for this type of music for a movie or a TV show, I can send them a link. And they go, yeah, we like it. We want to license it. And they have to buy 2 licenses. Because when I write music for TV and they're paying you to do it, it's called a work for hire. And so they get to keep the publishing, you get to keep the writers, which is fine. I make $1, they make $1. But because they've got the vehicle to do it, and the music didn't pre-exist the vehicle. But any music that, and I've only uploaded 2 songs. One was this ? And then one was Emma Louise. So you can, my plan was to do a bunch of them, and I just haven't gotten around to it. It takes a while to really kind of get a song down so well that I feel like it's ready for multiple listens. That's another thing that kind of comes up. I think about basically 2 types of session guitar players in Los Angeles. There are the record guys and then the TV film guys. And I'm kind of falling to the TV film camp, I think. I mean, I play on records, but when I play on a record, it's a record where the song originates with me. I don't get brought in very often. Not very often do I get called in to add to a record or play on a record or something like that. Tim Pierce does that a lot, and has done that. I'm not that guy. I'm not a tone guy. I'm not like, okay, let me bring these 17 amps and these 42 cabinets and these 900 guitars. It's just like, I'm like, I'll pick up whatever's sitting here and I'll get, because here's why. In TV and film, I don't know if you even care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. In TV and film, you're all probably going to listen to that music once, and there's going to be dialogue and there's going to be explosions or who knows what going on. I remember working so hard on my first movie I ever worked on, and me and the composer worked so hard to get guitar tones. And it was a motorcycle movie. And when the movie came out, and we went to see the movie. The motorcycle racing was like 5 times louder than the music. All the nuance of tone and the things that I was doing, you couldn't hear any of it. And that's why in the business we kind of call it music by the pound. It's like cue. A cue is a scene. It may be 4 seconds. It could be 4 minutes. It could be longer. But you basically get all those cues done. And you just keep working, you keep hustling. And so the faster you can work, the more hireable you are, because everybody's paid by the hour. On a record, a lot of times, you can get paid by the hour, but a lot of times you're kind of like, okay, let's get paid by the song. So you maybe want to work a little, slower, And the thing is, if it's a record, people are going to want to listen to it over and over again. And the same thing too is like I'm kind of a jack of all, master of none. Like if somebody called me to play bluegrass in a movie, I'd be like, sure. If somebody called me to play, bluegrass banjo on a TV show, I'd be like, okay. Or maybe some mandolin on a video game, of course, no problem. But then if they say, oh, I'm doing a bluegrass record, you want to play banjo, and I'll be like, no, call this guy, because if you hear me play over multiple listens, you'll realize that I'm not a bluegrass banjo player. I can sound like a bluegrass banjo, but I'm not a bluegrass banjo player, and that's kind of, I'm fine with that. I wish, one of the things I've always said is I wish I had 10,000 or 1,000 lives. I would love to spend a life just playing oud, living in, Saudi Arabia playing oud and being get as good as I could at oud, or playing blues my whole life. I always thought blues was easy until I played in a blues band, and I realized I had 3 licks. It's like, dang it, it's a lot harder than I thought it was. Oh, you went, you went on a scholarship? You probably already said it, Ben. Where did you go? Yeah, the residual checks. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's much better than $20 for me. But most of my income is residual income. But keep in mind, I've been building it now since that. In fact, that movie, that motorcycle movie, was the first movie I ever got music in. And what happened there was, what did I tell you? There are 3 types of music. I was working for the composer, so I was playing on the score. There was source music. I don't remember. I don't know if Jasper did the source music. I don't remember. Maybe we did some source music. I don't remember. There was quite a bit of diversity. I played a lot of baritone in that movie, actually. Baritone electric. And then they had a ton of needle drops, meaning they had, I think, 20 different bands' songs in there. But these bands were doing it practically for nothing, because, and there's somebody out there that's asking me for that song because they can't find it anywhere. But you don't know what song I'm talking about. Sorry. So what happened was, of those 20 bands, I mean, this is a very low budget movie. Of those 20 bands, one of them got a record deal, and the record company wanted $10,000 for the license for the song. And they said, no, we're not gonna. That was actually, I think, what my friend Jasper made for scoring the movie, and I think he gave me $5,000 of it, and he gave his engineer $5,000. So he made nothing on the front end for scoring this whole feature, which took him hundreds of hours. But on the back end, you make money. This movie actually ended up on HBO and all this stuff, and it was, there was a lot of money in the. Ultimately, not a lot, but decent money. And so what happened? This band got signed. They wanted $10,000. The movie studio said no. And they asked Jasper, "Can you guys write something, or can you write something to replace it?" And Jasper said, "Well, I'm not. You need guitar player, so I'll bring Tom over." So Jasper and I got together for one morning. We wrote a song. I wrote the lyrics. I just ran across the lyrics last night. It's so funny. I don't know. I was clicking on files that I hadn't been clicked on a long time in my laptop, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're the lyrics. I didn't even know what the. At first, I looked at it and go, "What the heck is this?" And I realized it was the lyrics to the song. And I actually sang the original thing, but Jasper's a very, very, very good singer. So he re-sang it, but sang it like me. When he played it for me, I thought it was me singing, and he thought that was funny that I couldn't tell it was him. But it was like this kind of Nine Inch Nails kind of vibe, and we distorted and filtered the voice, and so it's just kind of a weird song. But it's kind of, yeah, it was kind of a Nine Inch Nails vibe. Was what we went for. And so I get a song, and they paid us $1 because you have to pay something to be a, money has to change hands for there to be a contract or something like that. So, and so I think, I got several, $300 check was the first check I think I got for that, and then. I think I got a couple checks in the $1,000, $2,000 range for that. So ultimately, that morning, it was like we worked from 9 to noon or something, went to lunch. I know exactly where we went to lunch because that's where we always went to lunch. And it was, I've made probably $10,000 off that morning. And that was kind of what got me thinking. It was like, wait a minute. Oh, collaborating, working with someone else. He had a gig that I didn't have. So work with people that have the gigs, write with them. And that's, so, again, this movie came out in 2006. So we're talking over almost 20 years, I've probably made 10,000. So it takes a long time for that money to show up. My wife calls it being career pregnant. You do some work and then 9 months later, you get some money. It's actually longer. It's more like 18 months later. But yeah, so, those residual checks, I remember seeing my friend Tom Howard, who passed away years ago, but he was the first composer I ever knew, and he had his BMI statement, and it was sitting on his piano. It was like this thick of papers, right? And it was the computer paper with the holes that you tear, the things that you tear off, and it has the green and lines on it and stuff. And I'm looking at it, and it's like 12 cents, 24 cents, 6 cents, 8 cents, 9 cents. I'm like, oh man, look. And I look at the bottom, it said $20,000. I'm like, oh, they do add up. It's like that. I mean, now it doesn't happen overnight. The thing he was doing was he was writing music for World Vision. So it was World Vision, which was a nonprofit. They would do these 30-minute infomercials, and it would be wall-to-wall music. So, and he would turn in cue sheets, so there would be a different song, every minute or two, 5 minutes or whatever, depending on the scene. It would change songs. You turn in cue sheets to the networks, and then when those things air, sometimes if they air at 2 in the morning, they're going to pay that 30 minutes may pay $1.80 in Omaha at 2 in the morning. But if it's in Los Angeles at 9 p.m. on KCAL, it'll pay $47 or something like that for those. But you've got it airing all over the country, all these different affiliates, and that's how it adds up. So that's, the Green Line computer paper flashback. Sorry about that. Yeah, what a pain that was. Oh my gosh, it's just like, what a waste. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't print my statements up. My last statement was over 100 pages long. And again, that sounds like, oh man, you must be rich. Well, no, because there's literally entire pages that are Amazon. I write a lot of music for Street Outlaws. And so there'll be 17,000 views of Street Outlaws, and it'll be 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents, 1 cent, 2 cents. It's just, so at the bottom of the page, it may be the whole page. It wouldn't be worth it for me to print it. It wouldn't be worth the ink or the paper. That whole page might pay 70 cents or something like that. But you have hundreds of those, and then it starts to add up. And people go, oh, that's because streaming's so bad. Streaming's what's the next thing, and it's going to pay less, but it does pay per viewer. Whereas when it's on network, you don't really know how many people are watching. They may overpay you, they may underpay you, you don't know. So, 8 cents. Are you gonna bet how long are you going with this? But I've gotten some nice royalty checks, and like I said, it pays my bills. And I'm constantly adding to it. See, and I still get paid for that movie that I did with Jasper. that still shows up on my BMI statement. Now, it's way down there. The movie was called Motocross, right? No, Supercross. It was called Supercross. And I think the biggest star in it was Sophia Bush. So I don't know if you've ever seen it, but yeah, it's definitely it's kind of this, one of those stupid movies where like the hero of the story is racing and he falls down or gets pushed down or something, and he's in 27th place. And it's like the announcer is announcing the race, and he's like, in first place, so-and-so, and so-and-so, second place, and 27th place. And I'm like, why would you bring up the 27th place guy? I know he's the hero, but the announcer for the crowd or for the broadcast, that he's pretending to be, would never mention the 27th place. And yet that doesn't help people stay engaged with the story. But those kind of things always crack me up when you see that. I'm like, race movies, they always, and moving up fast and so and so. Well, it's like, how do you know? Nobody's looking at 30th place. They're the two people in the front row, whatever. So, looking it up on YouTube. So, is it on YouTube maybe? I'll go to IMDb and see. You can watch it and I'll make a penny. Probably not quite a penny. Supercross. Oops. There it is. 2005. So actually further back than I thought. I thought it was 2006. But yeah. So I probably did the work 20 years ago. It's horrible. I got to give it a 10-star. I'm going to give it a 10-star rating. It's 4.3. It's not a very good movie. Let's see. Where can I watch it? Prime? Does it say Prime? And where is it? Oh, watch on Prime. Yeah. Oh, no. Rent or buy from 3. More watch options. I have the app. It's called Just Watch on my phone, and that you can type a name of a movie into Just Watch. That's called it. You can do it. They have an online version too, and it'll tell you what streamers it's on, and you program into it what streamers you have, and it'll tell you where to watch it for free. So it's a great little tool, because if you're like me and you have like 6 different subscriptions or 7 or whatever, it's like, okay. You go to Netflix. Is it there? No. Oh, is that HBO? No. Okay. Is it on Peacock? No. Is it on Amazon? No. Okay. Where is it? I can't find it. So anyway, okay. Well, I just want to check in on a Saturday because I'm not going to be here on Monday. Bruce, you know that. But next Monday, the next Monday I'll be back. We'll talk. And, Bruce, I've gotten, what about 3,000 new subscribers now? Let me look. Normally I would get, it's really slowed down. So this is good timing because my, where are you? Here it is. Okay. I'm looking at my analytics. So so it says in the last 28 days, I've gotten 3,300 new subscribers. I think I was at 500 for 28. So you're looking at about 2,700 new subscribers since the Paul video came out. Getting a lot of comments. Held for review. Let's see. No, nothing there. So nothing lately. Let me see if analytics, it'll show me a bar graph for subscribers. Yeah. So it jumped obviously that first day. I got 1,700 that first day. And then 500 the second day, 281, 216, and 207. Now, I'm getting a bump now. It's because I'm doing the live stream. So. Yay, no more hospital. Oh, I'm glad. I hope you never go back. So Bent, normally we're on Mondays. So Bent is the administrator for RJ Ranquillo's live stream. He was doing a shout out to me there. So I'm doing a shout out to him now. So anyway, I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna get some work done. But God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching. And Wendy, now you got to go out and do that thing you were supposed to do at the beginning. What was it that you were going to do? Or did you do it? Did you go and do it? Hold on, I got to scroll up here. How do I scroll up? Come on, let me scroll up. Here we go. Boop. Windy. I was gonna get up on that ladder and trim some branches. Okay, now you got to go get up on that ladder and trim some branches. That's why I'm getting off. Yeah, I went 3.5 hours on last Monday, so I can't do that today. I've got to get some work done. Okay. God bless you all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you a week from Monday. Okay. Bye bye.